Welcome to the Boardroom. I'm Ros Gold-Onwude. I'm here with the GM of the New York Liberty, Jonathan Kolb. Jonathan, congratulations on the #1 pick, Sabrina Ionescu. First of all, how do you think she's going to impact the Liberty and then the WNBA as a whole?
Yeah, first of all, thank you. We're really excited. In terms of Liberty, I think it's pretty easy to explain. I mean, she's a difference maker from day one. She comes in, it's not only on the court, it's her overall mentality. She just brings something different. In terms of the WNBA as a whole, I think it's going to be something we haven't really seen before in this generation with social media and everything, with this type of player, with this type of backing, name recognition from men, from women. I think there's a real opportunity for her to come in and really take this game to the next level.
So how much of that is on your plate? How much responsibility do you take? What are your goals to make sure with marketing that her reach is optimized?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. My role is really basketball based. And so it's really making sure Sabrina is comfortable. This is a major step for her. This isn't college. This is professional basketball. And while she knows what's ahead of her, it's my job to help ease her into that. So it's really simplifying everything, making sure that the player experience is where it needs to be so that she can focus with her business people on, the opportunities that are already coming her way.
Yeah, what are examples of that? How you make her player experience, I guess, just a better adjustment as she transitions. Again, she's coming in at the point guard spot, which is a huge learning curve in the men's or women's level.
Yeah, no, it's a huge learning curve, and I think part of that was going out and signing a player, Lasia Clarendon, this past offseason in free agency. A very good point guard, a phenomenal leader that can help, be that person for Sabrina to lean on. So it's getting people and teammates for Sabrina to relate to and lean on as she comes into this professional rank. And then it's also just really making sure we're there for her in anything that can be. And that's really for all of our rookies, to be honest. But specifically with Sabrina, it's making sure she already has access to the playbook. She's already working with our coaching staff, making sure that when this pandemic eventually does subside, that we have apartments ready to go in New York, just so she can come in and just really focus on basketball. That's it.
The team's going to be playing at Barclays this season in Brooklyn. So you mentioned apartments. I mean, does the whole operation, all the players are going to live in Brooklyn?
Yeah, it's actually the second year of that. So last year, while we were playing in Westchester, our ownership group made the commitment to start phase 1, if you will. And we moved everybody to Brooklyn right away. We started practicing in Brooklyn. So really, the only thing we had up in Westchester were our games. And the goal of that was really to bring that New York feel, to that city feel to these players. They loved it. They had a great time. Now they don't have to go anywhere else for their games. Everything will be in Brooklyn in terms of practice, living, and obviously playing.
You bring up the ownership group. I had the chance to host the New York Liberty's virtual draft party, and it was so awesome that the new leaders, new ownership, Joe Tsai and Clara Wu Tsai, came on, addressed the Liberty fan base, talked about their aspirations with bringing on a WNBA team. They also own an NBA team in the Brooklyn Nets. So what have you seen from them as far as how they're going to impact this new era of New York Liberty basketball?
Yeah, great question. So they are, as advertised, they're the most humble, caring people you could ever hope for in an ownership group. What was really fun for us was Joe and Clara were 49% owners of the Nets at the time they acquired full ownership of the New York Liberty. So we kind of got to come in and they had us in our entirety. We got to build those relationships really early on. And then obviously they became the 100% owners of the Nets where they are today. So I think they kind of look at us as their first baby. We came in with them and every single thing they promised, they have delivered on. Hence, like Barclays Center right away. I mean, as soon there was, everyone was wondering, what's the delay? Why is this waiting to be announced? Well, Joe didn't own Barclays Center yet. It wasn't contractually done. And so I think if you go back and you look at when the timing of that release came out, right around when he finalized that deal, it was announced the Liberty will be there. They've put up, everything they've said through and through. They've been great to work with, and they just really care. Clara wants to take this league to the next level. She sees big things for this league as a whole, not just the Liberty. So I think there's going to be some great things that come from them in years to come.
Absolutely. They've had a lot of success in multiple sports business ventures amongst all the other things that they do. I definitely saw that enthusiasm and
Yeah.
also like just genuine excitement to learn too on the women's side, as this is their first women's WNBA team.
Yeah.
So continuing it with the Brooklyn Nets, New York Liberty, I mean, there's synergy because of the ownership ties. How much do you guys see an opportunity there to co-brand? I know Kevin Durant messaged, Kyrie Irving messaged Sabrina Ionescu and Liberty players. And then how much do you also want to kind of build a brand separate of that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So from a brand perspective, Kia Clark, who's our chief operating officer, that's her zone and her lane, and she's got big plans there. In terms of the basketball side with, the players, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, so on and so forth, they've been nothing but supportive. I was in Chicago for the NBA's All-Star game, and was with Joe, and they had a party there, and Joe Harris was there. And Joe Harris came up to me and he just kept raving about Sabrina, how he can't wait to watch Sabrina. And at that point, that was in February. So we knew who we would take, but I was trying to be a little tight-lipped on it. But that's that kind of synergy. I think it's only going to grow from here. I mean, the Nets are going to be doing some really big things on the court in probably a year's time once they get going. And we're so excited to be there with them for it, for them to come out to Barclays Center and show up at our games. I think that's just going to really grow the game further the way we talked about earlier.
It's an exciting time for hoops in New York City. Certainly for the basketball games being played at Barclays Center, whether it's the Liberty or the Nets. You already mentioned this is a transitional period game-wise. The team last season was playing in White Plains, which filled about, 2,000 fans max?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And now they're about to transition to Barclays Center.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. The arena they were playing in last season almost limited what Liberty fans could do. But now coming to Barclays, what are your expectations? And then what would be considered a success as far as filling up the stands and atmosphere?
Yeah. So great question. We had 2 games at Barclays last year, one of which was because our ownership group actually rented out the building for a preseason game against the Chinese national team. And that thing was packed. August 11th of last year, we played Seattle during a regular season game, also at Barclays Center. Both times fans just turned out. I think the entire lower bowl was sold out. I think it's one of the best venues around to play at, NBA, WNBA, or otherwise. When you're there, the stage lighting, just the atmosphere itself, you kind of feel it's built for basketball. You feel the fans' energy just right on top of you. That's what we want. We want it to be the best home court advantage in the league, and it will be because our fans care. They will turn out. They've been waiting for us to get back to an NBA level venue, and we're here, and we trust that they're going to show up.
I'm not sure if this is your department, but are you aware of attendance numbers in the league that have been setting the bar? Like, who sets the bar and what kind of numbers are those?
Yeah, I think Minnesota's done such a great job for a really long time. And if you actually look at the reasoning, the method behind it is they've got a great 50-50 partnership with the Timberwolves. Obviously, the ownership group is the same, but everything they do, if you see a Wolves logo, you see a Lynx logo. And I think that's something we can envision for us going forward as well. And that just extends to the court. That extends to the fans. You feel like you belong. You feel a part of it. This is something that players around the league want to be a part of. And you look at the success that the Lynx have had, not only on the court, but in their attendance numbers. I remember I was with the league office, and I was at the finals in Minnesota against LA a couple of years ago. It was sold out, and I'm not just talking lower bowl. That whole building was sold out. And when you see that type of atmosphere as a player, I can only imagine that's what you want to be a part of. And so that's what we're aiming for as well.
And the future's bright. You've got the ownership partnership, and then now you've got the seeds that you're planting for success on the court and winning games. So let's get back to that draft. Was the draft. You were super busy. The New York Liberty came into the draft with 6 picks, including the number 1 draft pick, which went to Sabrina Ionescu. We'll name some of the other picks, and we're with the GM of New York Liberty right now, Jonathan Kolb. And first, before we even get to what happened in the war room there, what is the vision for the style and culture of New York Liberty basketball in this new era?
Yeah, I'm glad you divided that out into two, the style and the culture, because they're two separate things that we're really focused on right now. Stylistically, this will be different than people have really seen, for sure, with the Liberty, and let alone probably the WNBA at large. We're trying to create a real versatile on-court look. So that's players that can do multiple things at elite levels. So you look at Laysia Clarendon and Sabrina Ionescu. Those are elite point guards, and we'll wait to see what Sabrina does at this level. But certainly coming in, you know what she can bring. Asia Durr, just a scorer through and through, and she does so efficiently. So we're looking to spread people out on the floor, take high efficient shots. Defensively, we're smaller. And so in that, we're going to be switching a lot. We're going to be hedging. We're going to be doing things where we've got players that have energy that can come in if someone's tired, but we're going to be creating havoc for other teams. That's our plan. Culturally, it really starts with ownership. They've said it. They know what they want, and they hired me. I've hired Walt and his staff, and now now we're drafting these players, and we're acquiring these players that all fit that mold, which is complete selflessness. We're here for one thing, and that's to win. That's what we will be doing, but we're going to do it without cutting corners. We have our plan. We're going to be disciplined with that plan, and at the end of the day, when it's all said and done and we develop these players, we think we'll be in a really good spot.
Absolutely. And Walt Hopkins, in his first years as head coach with the New York Liberty as well, a lot of new freshness. Yeah. Some new names coming in with the draft. So Sabrina Ionescu was at number 1. Megan Walker out of UConn, number 9. Yeah. You ended up with the 10th pick through trade with Phoenix, and you got Jocelyn Willoughby out of Wnba. Jasmine Jones out of Louisville with the 12th pick. 13th pick, Kylie Shook out of Louisville again. Yeah. 15th pick, Liana Odom out of Duke. And then the 26th pick was a trade. It started with Erica Ogwumike being drafted out of Rice, but traded to Minnesota for Stephanie Talbot. So Jonathan, GM, I'm all over the place. You had a busy night at the draft. You hit on just about every single one of your targets. I know this because we spoke heading into the draft, because I was hosting the New York Liberty's virtual draft watch party, and I wanted to be able to communicate with fans, why things were happening. Literally every name you mentioned to me before the draft, and you said, this is our first target at this pick, you got. And what I want to know is, how does something like that happen? How often does that happen? Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for bringing that up, because I'm so glad we spoke beforehand so you can actually verify that that's true, because I feel some people might think I'm just, saying that we hit everyone we got, but we did. How often it happens, I think it's a historic night in terms of the amount of picks we had. So I don't know, it's probably unprecedented, but there were so many variables in terms of who went where. I think there were some surprise picks to some of the experts early on in the draft, and that certainly shook up the board. But it's all about having a plan. We researched this draft through and through. Our staff did such a phenomenal job with that. And, it was a virtual draft, and I think the league did a great job there, but we were at risk of some technical difficulties that could go on when it's conducted that way. So we knew we had to be really tight. And if a certain player was taken at a certain spot, to know, hey, we've got our player here that we will select no matter what. To hit on everybody was amazing. The big haul or surprise for us was Megan Walker at 9. She was somebody we had talked weeks prior. How do we trade up in the draft to get Megan? Mm-hmm. And so for us to land her at that spot and get Jocelyn via trade, the whole next day, our staff, we were all on the phone just going over and over that day and how that happened. It was wonderful.
Yeah, you actually hit all your targets and got an upgrade on Megan Walker.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to dive deeper into this whole virtual draft situation, where it was not only important for the WNBA to still have this day, this moment, also to celebrate these excellent women, not allow it to get pushed back, but to still hold on and make it happen. Yeah. I'm sure it was also all eyes were on it because the NFL draft is coming up as well.
Yeah.
I'm sure people were wondering, how would the WNBA do it and how would it go? So what are your reflections from a virtual draft? What goes well and what was quite challenging to handle?
Yeah, great. First of all credit goes to the league office, especially Kathy Engelberg, for them to have the foresight to go through with the draft. when they made that decision, things were a lot more murky. We didn't know where this pandemic would be going. We didn't know, hey, could this thing end in a month or so? Should we just push back the draft? They knew it was the best thing to keep it on that date. And I think for the draftees, they'd agree it was the best decision. They got to have their moment that they earned. From a technical standpoint, you got to have enough devices. And especially if you're going to make 2 trades on draft night, you got to make sure you've got your phone available. And that was one thing. I had a conference call on an iPad with our staff. I had the league conference call on a computer, on a MacBook. And then I had my phone, and that thing was ringing off the hook, as you can imagine, as the draft was going. So it was just really making sure we could all stay connected. Props to the Wi-Fi connection for coming through big that night. Otherwise, the draft could have looked a bit different.
Shout out to good Wi-Fi.
Exactly.
So when you're evaluating these female athletes, these basketball players from the collegiate level to the WNBA, what does that entail? What are you looking for? How many people are on your team doing this for you? Mm-hmm. And what, I'm talking skill-wise right now, what are the things that differentiate women's basketball players that allow you to make an assumption on whether or not they're league ready?
That's a great question. So when we were building out our coaching staff, credit to Walt, what he wanted to formulate was a group that was very different individually, not only in terms of their personalities, but in the way that they see the game. Later this week, we'll be announcing who the entire coaching staff is, which I'm really excited about because I would love right now to shout out some people. But the biggest thing was they all see different things in players. And we have created a system within our staff where every single person, no matter the level of coach, how long they've been coaching, they have a voice, and we want to hear that voice. And so when we're evaluating players, we've got somebody that'll be looking at their body movements, literally how they're moving, and anticipating, hey, that player may be at risk for injury. We need to go talk with their trainer at the college level and really see what strength and conditioning they're doing there. We've got other people like Walt, for example, that will go through our system, and he'll be looking at clips and film of these players in those situations, and he can evaluate if they're going to translate. I think we've talked about Shelly a lot. We've announced that we've hired Shelly away from Minnesota, which we're thrilled about. Shelly was vital in interviewing these players and just seeing how their personalities will come out in a group setting. I mean, she's been a part of multi-championship teams. So when we're doing that, and then actually one more thing, Ohima Nyanen, who's our director of basketball operations, she came over from USAB a year ago. She's actually been around all of these players for years at the under 17, under 18 levels. So we're getting all this intel on who they are as people as well. So we're really thorough. In terms of the men's and women's game, they are different, but actually I don't think in an individual sense, especially with all the trainers that are around and how these players are really getting, a running start at the AAU levels and below in terms of their individual training, it's catching up. You see that athleticism now in our game. One of our draftees, Jazz Jones, fans are going to flip out over how quick she is, especially defensively. So I think the game is merging a little bit more between the genders.
How likely is it, Jonathan, that we might see this WNBA season get played, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's really up to the league. Right now, we're planning to play basketball. We're just waiting for the go. Even this morning, our trainer texted me, and she's like, is it okay if I continue to send our daily workouts to the new rookies? And the answer is absolutely. We're trying to keep everybody engaged mentally, like I talked about earlier with our digital playbook we have, and then through workouts physically. In terms of the season, it's so up in the air, just like everything else in the world. It's up to the health officials, it's up to the government, and then ultimately when those rulings come down, up to the league. We won't put our players in a situation where they're not safe. That's the biggest thing. So once it is safe to play basketball, we can't wait to hit the court.
Does the WNBA have to follow the NBA's lead?
I don't think there's any rules right now at all. I think they're different leagues. I think when you look at the NBA, that's 30 teams, and you look at the WNBA, you've got 12, which means you've got 144 or less players depending upon roster size. So maybe that is something we can experiment with in a more of a safe environment. But it's got to be done right. So it's all going to be left up to the league, and we trust them right now, very much so, to make the right decisions.
You kind of skimmed over it a little bit, and I also had the chance to speak with Coach Walt Hopkins about what he's doing, but I want to hear it from you. Yeah. How do you keep your new draftees, your returners, ready and meshing with a new head coach, a new system.
Yeah.
How do they learn the plays? How do they stay in shape? You don't know who has what kind of equipment with them. Like,
Yep.
what are the ways the Liberty are making sure their team could be successful if the season does start up?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's all about communication. It really is. And it's that simple. And I know it might not be the fun answer, but it's checking in on players all the time, almost ad nauseum. Just how are you? What are you doing for working out? I talked with Wnba last week, actually, I think of the day of draft, and she was telling me she's working out with her mom. Like, it's just checking in on these players. I know Lasia Clarendon is setting up a group chat with the full team, just so that they stay connected. Kia Nurse hit me the day after the draft for all of our rookies' phone numbers. She wants to reach out to them. So the biggest thing is, and I mean this, our players want to play so bad. They want to be connected with their teammates. They want to do this. They believe in what we're building here. So it's just a matter of staying connected, keep communicating, and making sure they have the most up-to-date information as well.
I don't know if you've heard about this yet. I only know it because after the draft, I interviewed Coach Hopkins. And he was talking about having a software that allows the plays to be broken down by piece. So they'll show an action and be like, what happens next?
Yep.
And he said he was going to quiz the players.
Yeah. Yep. He is. It's not for a grade. You want to know who really loves that is Sabrina. Sabrina is ready to take that quiz as you can imagine. She's all about it. Like I said, she hit us for that password right away, trying to get access to that playbook. And that's a credit to our coaching staff. They, up to this point, they built not only diagrams, they've got video linked to it. It's a way for our players to continue to stay engaged from afar.
Absolutely. And just kind of finishing with your journey. Before becoming the GM of the New York Liberty, you actually worked in the Wnba League office for 5 years. Your most recent role, Director of Basketball Strategy and Analytics. How does that role prepare you for the GM role with a professional league?
Yeah, it's a good question. So for me, the major bulk of my role was actually helping to advise the other team's general managers on the collective bargaining agreement and the rules that govern the salary cap. So I was very much in tune with each mechanism that is in place that allows you to sign players, trade players, waive players, so on and so forth. And so when someone was new in that role, they would often give me a call, and I'd help them along the way during their journey. So the best way to get, I guess, up to speed was through that role where I was teaching and I was explaining on a daily basis on how to do this. The strategy and analytics part of it allowed me to really look at different teams and study how they win from a numbers standpoint. So maybe in my old role, that was applied differently to potential rule changes or playoff format or game format type situations, but also it was really allowing me to see, interesting, that's where this team is taking their shots. Who's taking those shots? How much of a volume? And then you kind of go from there. So that really did help prep me a lot in terms of this role.
Sounds like it. What are the skill sets and backgrounds that you found help make a successful GM? Whether it's your story or others you've guided.
Yeah, the biggest thing I can say is there's no one path. There really isn't. If there was a book that I could have read when I was in college, I was back in the day, I would hound certain people in different NBA organizations, trying to just get trying to just get in front of them, show them my passion for the game and what I could bring. In terms of a path, I've seen so many different ways to do it. Some people get in as a video coordinator and they work their way up. Some people maybe work for a college program and then they get in with a professional team. But for me, there just isn't a path. I think that if you're passionate enough and you give enough people a reason not to say no by the skill sets you've developed, you'll give yourself a chance. And then it's all on you. And you have to be prepared for that opportunity. It's one thing to want the job. That's one thing. But it's another thing to actually be ready for it and know what it really is all going to entail. This is a 24/7 job. It's the best job in the world. I don't even like calling it a job. I'm very lucky to do it. But for people that have that passion, as long as they're prepared, if they get the chance, I think that they'll find their way.
Would you suggest, even though all the paths might be different, would you suggest people spend time engaging with analytics or understanding contracts, maybe having a law background or internship? Like, what would you say?
Yeah, so going back to, I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and going back then, my main mentor, and to this day, my main mentor is Dave Griffin, who's he's at New Orleans. He's the best human I know. And I'm surprised he didn't get a restraining order on me when I was emailing him in college, like, please meet with me, please meet with me. But after a long time, and he helped me get my start in Phoenix, the biggest thing he told me was he wishes he had a law degree. And he just said that when he was advising me. And so I took that to heart and I went to go get it. And I have to say, it does change the way you think in terms of problem solving, not just contracts. Contracts are contracts, you can learn that. But problem solving, it really helps. Analytics, I definitely think, is something that people from a young age can really get into. Basketball on Paper by Dean Oliver is a wonderful book that really starts to go in deep on the NBA and how analytics started to transform. If you're up on that, there will always be a place for you in an organization. And then from there, it's where do you carve out your career? Where do you find those next opportunities? So I agree. Both of those really help me.
All right. Well, Jonathan, you have given us a comprehensive breakdown of things for the New York Liberty and even the GM career path. I appreciate your insights, and I am so excited for you and the New York Liberty as you embark on this new era.
Thank you. We're so excited as well. We can't wait to get going.
All right. We'll be looking out for when that schedule releases finally, and hopefully some games get played safely and in a healthy way.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.